Trump is attending the swearing-in ceremony for the U.S. Attorney General for New Jersey. He is speaking about his call with Prime Minister Mark Carney. Let's listen.
You said if that were to happen, that you would be responding with large-scale tariffs. Will you be following through with that promise?
Well, absolutely. But we had a very good conversation. Mark called me today at 10 o'clock. We put out a statement. We had a very, very good talk. He's going through an election now, and we'll see what happens. But we have Liberation Day, as you know, on April 2nd, because, and I'm not referring to Canada, but many countries have taken advantage of us, the likes of which nobody even thought was possible for many, many decades, And, you know, that has to stop. We're going to end up with a very good relationship with Canada and a lot of the other countries. Some we probably won't. It won't be so pleasant. But I think most countries are agreeing with me. They actually, many of them have actually apologized. They said, look, we have taken advantage. And I don't blame them as much as I blame the people that stood, in this case I can say the men, because so far they've been all men, haven't they? But the men that sat right there and behind the Resolute desk, mostly the Resolute desk, you know. I don't know if you know, you have a choice of 7 desks. The Resolute is the one I like, but some chose other ones. But they sat right behind a desk right in this location, and they let our country be hurt very badly. But I didn't do that. But we had a very good talk, the Prime Minister and myself, and I think things are going to work out very well between Canada and the United States. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Mr. President, how is the talks with India or tariff going on?
You've been listening to U.S. President Donald Trump moments ago talking about his phone conversation with Prime Minister Mark Carney this morning. And this is what Donald Trump had to say. Had a very good conversation. Mark, referring to him by his first name, which is quite common between leaders. Mark called me at 10 a.m., had a very, very good conversation. He did say he would be following through with tariffs, but he said April 2nd will be Liberation Day, not referring to Canada, saying he's not referring to Canada. We will end up with a very, very good relationship with Canada, a very good talk, he said, that he had with the Prime Minister, and acknowledged that he is going through an election. All right, the CBC's Karina Roman has been listening along with us from Ottawa. Let's do that first, because we heard from, let's talk about the call, let's talk about what we just heard from Donald Trump there. Karina first.
Yeah, so the first question was, you threatened, this is to Donald Trump, he threatened escalating tariffs if countries push back with their own tariffs, like Canada, or work together like Canada and the EU. You'll remember there was a social media post from Donald Trump saying, don't do that or else I'm going to hit back even harder. So he was asked whether that was going to still go ahead, if that's still his plan. And he said, yes, absolutely. But it kind of felt like he was, I don't know, I'm parsing Donald Trump's words. I don't know how wise that is. But then he pivoted into discussing the call that he had with Mark Carney. And not unlike his Truth Social post, not unlike the Prime Minister's own readout, it was a positive conversation. There seems to be a general feeling of mutual respect when you hear Donald Trump talking about the possibilities going forward with Mark Carney and Canada. But again, I think we're all very guarded because this is what he's saying now in this moment. And who knows with what could happen in the next hour, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, Karina, if I'm just going through what he just said, but again, it's what he says and what he does. They can be different. It's just the way it goes. But it was definitely respectful in terms of, it seemed to be. And then he's often referred to April 2nd as Liberation Day because many, many countries, in Donald Trump's words, have ripped off the United States. He said, I'm not referring to Canada. He did say that. But then asked about tariffs, yes, tariffs will be going through, but we will end up with a very good relationship with Canada. So it's kind of, it's interesting to try and parse those words. What could that mean about what is coming next week? I bet you don't know.
I don't.
Because I don't either.
But I will say, when you think about also things that Mark Carney has said, or just today as well in a Radio Canada interview, Melanie Joly, the Foreign Affairs Minister, Melanie Joly saying, their goal is no tariffs, but and you're not going to accept, okay, well, at least we're only getting 12.5% auto tariffs instead of 25%. That's not the way that that's being received on the Canadian end. But Mark Carney has talked significantly about how changed the relationship is and will be going forward. So if there are tariffs that are long-standing, the goal will still be to negotiate with the U.S. and try and put pressure on and retaliate and try and get those tariffs off. But at the same time, Mark Carney has made it very clear that it's also about making Canada more autonomous, so those tariffs don't hurt as much. Yeah. So we make more of our stuff at home. We find other markets so that we're not so dependent on the U.S. So there isn't a single solitary goal of no tariffs. That is a goal. But we will be working, the country under Mark Carney's plan would be working towards becoming more autonomous. And to be fair, that is also what we've heard from Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader, saying that, we need to build more and we need to build Canada.